Welcome to this soundbite. I'm Patricia Riddell, and I'm a professor in applied neuroscience. I work as a specialist consultant for the Oxford Group, where I bring my knowledge of the brain to bear on challenges that are currently being faced within organizations. In this soundbite, I will share a little of my understanding of how the brain copes in times of crisis. In particular, I will discuss how individual differences in our personality and temperament can affect how we respond in a crisis. Each of us has a unique brain, which has been wired partly as a result of our genetics, but also through our individual experiences. This unique wiring will result in differences in our response to crises, depending, for instance, on whether we've experienced crises in the past, whether we have responded well to these, or whether we've never had a crisis in our life and so have no past experience on which to base our response. How we respond is not only about who we are as individuals, but also the situations that we have met to date. For this reason, we should not judge people on their immediate response to a crisis, but more on their willingness to learn from the experiences. Differences in the way we respond will depend, for instance, on whether we're introverted and do our thinking internally, or extroverted and want to think aloud. We will also differ in whether we are more motivated by approaching attractive goals or avoiding unwanted outcomes. Some of us are optimistic and believe that good outcomes are possible, while others are more pessimistic or realistic and focus on potential risks. Some of us notice problems and others move directly to solutions, while some of us love to explore new situations and others are more comfortable exploiting their ability to perform well-practiced tasks. Some of us hate uncertainty and ambiguity, while others hardly notice that the information that they have to hand is full of contradictions and missing parts. Some people only see the big picture, while others can get lost in the detail. And some of us believe that we are always able to influence situations and therefore that we have control or an internal locus of control, while others feel that events happen to them and have an external locus of control. Any one of these differences will result in unique responses to crises. This can range from viewing a crisis as a wonderful opportunity to try out new ideas, to wanting to stay in bed and hibernate until the crisis is over. Knowing how each member of your team responds to crises can help you to lead individuals more effectively through challenging times. So what does the brain do when we are challenged by a crisis? One of the most important functions of the brain is noticing situations which are safe to approach and those which should be avoided. This has evolved to allow us to benefit from new opportunities while protecting us from harm. The part of the brain which notices potential reward is the ventral striatum, part of the dopamine reward system. This area of the brain remembers situations that have rewarded us in the past and looks for opportunities to repeat these rewards. The greater the number of rewarding situations we've experienced, therefore, the more likely we are to notice reward in our current situation. The part of the brain that signals potential threat is the amygdala. This area of the brain is used to increase our vigilance in potentially threatening situations so that we are more likely to recognize and protect ourselves from harm. Again, we become more vigilant the more experiences we have in which we have to avoid situations in order to protect ourselves, both physically and psychologically. Many situations activate both the ventral striatum and the amygdala. Consider, for instance, what happens in a crisis. If we've experienced and survived crises before, we're likely to both notice the potential threat, but also possible rewards. Indeed, we might even be more alert to the reward than threat. This will result in a certain enjoyment of crises as an opportunity to change, develop, and learn. However, if crises have not been rewarding or have adversely affected our mental or physical health, we would be more likely to treat these as threats and therefore be cautious and vigilant in our responses. Despite this, we are often required to continue to work during a crisis. In order to manage this, we use the prefrontal cortex to regulate our emotional responses, reducing the sense of threat and the excitement of potential rewards. When crises are seen as highly threatening, the prefrontal cortex has to be highly activated to manage the threat response. This can lead to decreases in the quality of decision-making and ability to plan, as the prefrontal cortex is also essential in these functions. Leaders and managers should be aware of the potential for this to happen, as this increases the probability of noticing who in their team is likely to cope well in a crisis and those that might be more prone to reductions in their mental health. With this knowledge, there is an increased potential to help individuals to manage their individual responses better. In order for you to be best placed to help your team, take some time to reflect. What differences do you notice in your team's response to crises? Who appears to enjoy the challenge, and who seems to find this more threatening? Who appears to become more creative in a crisis, and who requires more certainty? Who are your exploiters, and who prefer to explore the talents that they can bring to bear on this new situation? Notice also how you respond to different team members. Who do you empathize with and understand? Who do you struggle to understand? When you've considered the differences in your team's response to change, you will be in a better position to provide them with tasks that suit their abilities, and you will be better placed to provide challenge for those who work well in a crisis and support for those who need it. You will also be able to reflect on whether you have the right range of diverse responses in your team to cope well in future crises. We hope you found this soundbite interesting and useful. Please get in touch with us if you would like to consider more ways in which understanding the brain better can help you with challenges in your organization.